Okay, I think it's about time I made this video. Isn't that right, Rika?
はい。
A video covering what I deem are the current problems in Nioh 2. Problems that not only affected the game's life at launch, but are also now jeopardizing its future DLC contents. These problems can be quantified by two factors. Viewership. It's been a full month since Nioh 2's first DLC launched, so let's check the views in the past month, sorted by highest viewed video. And... oh. Okay, let's check the kanji for Nioh 2 since it's a Japanese game after all. Surely there are better views there.
お前はもう死んでいる。何？
Well, surely these views are probably pretty good compared to, let's say, old ass Dark Souls, right?
No.
So, there you go. Are the views good, Rika?
嫌です。
Exactly. Views are low, especially compared to Nioh 1 when its first DLC launched. And most importantly, the second factor, sales are down. It took Nioh 2 several months to reach 1 million sales during a period where most people are stuck at home. Yet, it took Nioh 1 a few weeks to crack a mill as a brand new IP in its launch month. So, what does this mean? This means this game is not doing as good as it should be doing, if it's tracking this behind its predecessor. This game, Nioh 2, somehow became even more niche despite having prior knowledge of the criticisms of the first game. So clearly, they're doing something wrong, or haven't learned to fix their mistakes. But, what exactly? First off, story. Story in Nioh 2 is a complete mess, with characters being introduced, then taken away in a flash. The game trailers highlighted Nobunaga heavily, to only then phase him out in the most pathetic way possible. Tsukichiro was the only decently represented character, but every other side character, including Mumio, was made irrelevant with lack of representation or involvement in the plot. The newest DLC, Tengu's Disciple, was even somehow worse, not knowing what the hell was going on unless you were some kind of Japanese history nerd. Yoshitsune baby raging suddenly was poorly impacted. Copy-pasted Nioh and Blob Monster were just thrown in, so Benki was probably the only decent addition as far as characters go, although the Yoshitsune fight itself was awesome. But they did a poor job at telling the Japanese legends and history and making it impactful to capture the player's intrigue, in my opinion. Sure, there were time skips, but perhaps each arc was sliced too thin, failing to make it a rich and engaging experience. Nioh 1's William was better represented. You cared about him. You cared about Hanzo, cared about Akatsu, Ieyasu, and Kelly. These characters interacted repeatedly, the plot was easy to follow, Nobunaga's entrance was badass, and the DLC characters, especially Maria, represented villains very well. Nioh 2 lacked all of that. But hey, character customization for waifus, yay! So, 2 DLCs left. They need to do a better job at telling the story and making us care at all about these new characters. Moving on to gameplay. Hardcore skill-based gameplay is fine. This is where they haven't failed much at all. However, I still feel people should be getting more skills per weapon. The newest Tengu's DLC only added around 3 skills total. Not for each weapon, but total. Sure, we got a brand new weapon, but that's expected. Some people may not like that new weapon, and depending on their favorite weapon of choice, they may not even have gotten anything new to play with for their weapon from the DLC. Ninjutsu got copy-pasted AoE feathers, and Omnio got 2 basic spells to its arsenal that still somehow can make Omnio more easily viable, as Ninja is with feathers. Combine all these things and the game largely feels indifferent to Nioh 1. Most people are using the exact same things as they did in the first game. Sign of the Cross, EI, Rumbling Earth, Backwave, Moon and Snow, etc. If it wasn't for cores and burst counters, you wouldn't really tell the difference between each game. It feels the same, but in a bad way, as in we're not getting much added on top of the core gameplay. So, We really need more skills, and interesting skills at that. If a bunch of new skills is too hard to make, then how about cool new set bonus effects that can change or amplify skills or trigger unique conditions? They ripped off Diablo and Path of Exile, but in the simplest and most boring way possible. Why not add effects that can chain kunai between enemies? Why not add a supercharged set bonus that speeds up the charge animation for attacks like EI? Or fun effects like the set bonus has a chance to summon a Scampus on enemy kill. Bigger AoE effects for skills like Rumbling Earth. Mad Spinner sucks in enemies towards it, like an Inverse Cyclone in PoE. A set bonus giving you a chance to summon a decoy for you for X amount of seconds when hit. There's so much creative stuff they can do with this game, and yet they don't, and rather have basic ass melee damage percent increases or useless attack bonus X, which are proven to be dog shit compared to normal damage percent. Versatility was a cool addition, but that's 1 out of 10 of the new graces, where the majority of the other 8 adding 0 gameplay additions to builds. Be more creative, add more creative things, for crying out loud. Yokai Shift. This desperately needs something unique, something akin to Sacred Bird Cry or actual unique skills within the Yokai Shift forms itself to help it have more identity, cause right now, with its basic quick and strong attacks, why go to shift form when normal form can easily build up anima in various ways like my Yoshimitsu or Hachimaru builds showcased? If you get hit in shift form, it's basically over, and being regulated to relying solely on Seorsha's effect to go in and out of form fast is bad design. There's a huge lack of reward for going into shift form, not just from a damage or surviving aspect, but also a fun aspect. There's nothing cool about shift form, because everything you can do in shift, you can do in human form. So give it a better identity. You already failed to do it with the first DLC despite buffing Yokai Shift, so you only got 2 chances left to make it right. It just doesn't feel like a super form, which is how it probably should have been, like Living Weapon did. The only thing Shift has going for it is the increased grapple damage from the newest change, making it the best damage for grapple builds, as they're going to hit harder now. Yet still, you simply need to activate Shift during a grapple, being human leading up to that point, so it still doesn't give the actual use of the form any favors. It was a mechanic so hyped in cutscenes and the lore of the game, but is regulated to uselessness or inferiority in almost every in-game scenario. Pathetic. And the last big chunker before going into the nitty-gritty stuff that I voiced my complaints about already before, Dream of the Demon and future difficulties. With the nerfs to players' overall damage compared to Nioh 1, these new difficulty scalings are having a negative impact on players' damage in a non-fun way. There's something wrong in the balance. The base damage for players is much too low. If you're grinding your ass off for star effects and a near plus 20 sword with Carnage and Weakness Talisman applied, max cores, near level 400, all that leads you to dealing damage like this. What the hell? We have a problem. This is the kind of damage I would expect from a normal skill-based player who intentionally held back damage by not min-maxing to fight against the boss to enjoy the combat more. But no, this is with actual grinded out gear, flat attack on everything, star effect damages on everything, stuff that takes hours or days to get, and this is the best we can do to a snake no less in Dream of the Demon. In return, you simply get one shot from a grav attack, if light armor. But the big negative to this is buffs and debuffs. Because of the pathetic base damage, or the fact that the boss's health is overinflated, your normal weapon and gear, no matter how much you stack it or upgrade it, that no longer matters. What matters now only is debuffs and buffs, confusion, zero key, melee versus X effects, and now your damage gets boosted to this. Do you see the huge difference? This is a big problem as it funnels players to using these exact same things to fight every single encounter if they wanted to do good damage. In Nioh 1, I never had to rely on zero key. I never had to rely on elemental debuffs. I never had to rely on confusion ever. In Nioh 2, if you want to get similar kill speeds to that of Nioh 1, you have to add all this other bullcrap on top just to deal good damage. This needs to change. Base damage from gear needs to significantly go up, and/or boss's health needs to significantly go down, all while nerfing debuffs and buffs. So the outcome would be the same speed as it is now, with all your buffs and the enemies debuffed as much as possible, getting melted in seconds, but the balance between the effects would be better. Instead of doing 5% of the boss's HP, with my Kurama attack dependent on gear and one buff and one debuff, I should be doing like around 30% instead, let's say, with this gear currently. This change would open the possibilities in what skills are used, what debuffs and buffs are used, so the player can have more variety in their approach. Like, wasn't the point of nerfing Tengen was to force players to have more variety? But in the end, look around. There's nothing but the same buffs and same debuffs and grapple builds going around all over the place, with barely anything else. Because all the gear related problems I'm about to talk about, this stuff needs to be worth more for your actual output, and not so reliant on debuffs or buffs that you have easy access to at the tap of one button press each. And none of these changes would affect skill-based player combat. They would still get to enjoy the game as is with long boss battles. But what reason do you have to make the other portion of the game you decided to keep in this game, the RPG stat and effect stacking grindfest, why make that a worse experience for? This same trash balance and stats and such is also what makes 3-player co-op a snooze fest against yokai bosses with their million HP and even resisting debuffs. It's an unfun experience in my opinion. And for what? You take 5 to 10 minutes to kill them for the same exact rewards as 2-player co-op, which does a better job at scaling boss health? I don't understand these decisions. Who is this for? And is this making the game a better experience, or for that matter, attracting new players to the game? No, it isn't. Before getting into gear, let's mention scrolls. After an entire month of waiting, they finally added new scrolls that make you encounter DLC enemies and bosses in the latest patch. Why the hell did this take so long to come out? Why wouldn't you expect players to want to fight the new content they paid for instead of the same old content they've already fought for 5 months prior in scrolls? This decision makes me believe that they withheld this no-brainer edition so they can pad out the content since they know it'll be several months between each DLC. It's good that they finally added it, but yet another big mistake to take this long after much of the player base died already from boredom. So now we get into gear, and with the newest patch 1.14, they made star effects more common and increased the lower end percent of the possible range on them. However, from around 8 runs of the 2-horse refinement stage, they're still not that common, maybe around 20% of the gear having a star instead of 5 to 10%. A simpler and better solution would be to just allow star effects to be revenant traded. Whoa, look at that! I solved the problem of the grind fest in this game. Sure, there's a Kodama Bazaar method for trading actual gear with each other, but even that is beyond tedious and a slow process. Again, why not just let us trade star gear instead? Why make it so tedious? For again, as you saw earlier, the damage you can do with said gear without relying on several debuffs and buffs. With the new change, it's good that they wanted to persuade people to play the game and not rely on save scumming or Sodama trading for these rare effects, but too little, too late, just like the scroll thing. The new patch also specifies Dream of the Demon, which could mean the next difficulty not having the same benefit in effect. And think about it, all of this minor but heavily grinding min-maxing only for the next ethereal rarity gear to make it all irrelevant, as you can't even easily change rarities without some super rare rarity transference effect that I've still yet to encounter commonly at all on any gear. I've only seen it on scrolls and cores. Come ethereals, we will not even be able to forge them, so if you thought this grind for certain effects or certain armors with the grace you want, with the star effects you want is bad now, wait till ethereals arrive. And I'm saying this negatively as so far they have changed nothing about this whole gear system compared to Nioh 1. It's the same BS that killed the game for me from the RPG side, and even now I'm burnt out on builds with the current content, with the current strategies to deal damage, and the grind behind it all. It's not like we're grinding for legendaries in Diablo or Path of Exile, which would have been an amazing addition to this game, and totally worth spending time to grind for a unique sword or X that had cool set stat effects. Imagine Yoshizune's sword being a unique that not only was a part of the set bonus, but also had additional unique permastats found nowhere else. Like it creates sonic waves each slash that apply purity elements and can hit from afar. Or, like Tonfa Gun was in Nioh 1, gave you a unique skill to summon Yoshitsune's projectiles. Obsidian Samurai's unique axe making your charge attack skills like Lumber Chop stronger or triggers a lightning explosion on impact. Imagine Ippon Data's hammer doing a fiery explosion when you do a rumbling earth. Stuff like that I would be happy to grind for. Not this lame active skill damage plus 6.8% nonsense. At the very least, let us change graces somehow. Some way. Anything. Let us change graces. And I haven't even gotten to cores. Core grind is arguably worse than star effects or graces. Without whining too much, basically, drop the separation for fusion between core types. Change it so you can fuse any core with any other core. The only reason core grind is such a hassle is because you can only get and inherit stats from the same core type. Otake with Otake, Magatsu with Magatsu. This needs to change. I should be able to fuse my Otake core with any other core type, be it Ippon, Yoki, Enki, or whatever. Or at the very least, I should be able to fuse it with the same shift color type. So my purple Otake core can fuse with any other Phantom Purple core. This in turn would also give more significance for mortal cores to change your main core type so you can get another core color's type inheritable onto your main. We just want the stats we want so we can enjoy our builds more often. Right now, it seems like most people have to spend majority of their time grinding to make a build rather than actually using it. And now we have to spend more time applying X buffs and X debuffs before actually using the skills we want to deal good damage. These are my complaints right now for the game and its future. There's also a big lack of communication between the developers and us players. They don't regularly ask for feedback on things they can improve or what players would like to see added. Just boop, here's a content or a patch, we'll see you guys in a month maybe. It's frustrating because I care about the game so much, and yet I can't help the feeling that the devs don't care about the game's problems or improving the game, making it better and making it more fun. And consider this fact that this may be the last Nioh we'll see. That's right, the last Nioh. And sure, even if they do make a new series with good in-depth combat, are they giving me confidence that they'll handle that game good long term? Have we forgotten what happened to Ninja Gaiden, the supposed best combat action game in history, if not one of the top 5? Right now, the path for Nioh 2 seems to be the same path of Nioh, where the DLCs continually become the worst aspect of the game. So I don't know. I guess even regardless if they fix these so-called problems, some might say, it wouldn't change the fate of the game regardless, as they're not really doing anything new to attract more players. But at the least, they could make these last few DLCs a memorable and fun experience to end the franchise with. So, just as a recap, these are the changes I want to see from the future of the game. Will the devs actually see this video? Probably not. Will any of these changes take place? Maybe like a 1% chance, maybe, but regardless, now you guys know my feelings on the endgame at the moment and what I'd like to see the DLCs answer. We still don't know the supposed Abyss replacement, but I guess we'll cross that road once we get there. I just want to thank you guys for hearing my opinions, which are mine alone, but what I like to hear are your guys' thoughts, if any, on what needs to be done to make Nioh 2 a better or more interesting game. Or do you think Nioh 2 is perfect the way it is? Sound off in the comments below and subscribe for more. Till the next DLC, Nioh 2 Epicness.
Don't wait, show that you're not a zero.